Welcome to Be Different, the podcast of Iguales y Diferentes. In this episode, we sit down with Hal Hannaford, a true veteran of education and leadership. With over 30 years as headmaster in top Canadian accredited independent schools, Hal brings a wealth of insight into what it takes to build and lead a great school. From his early days as a student at Lower Canada College in Montreal to founding Kingsway College School and later leading Selwyn House School, his career spans decades of innovation, mentorship, and vision. Beyond the classroom, Hal is a passionate speaker, camp director, fundraiser, and musician with a particular love for the blues. Join us as we explore his inspiring journey, practical advice for educators, and his vision of what makes a school truly great.
No, I think it will be really helpful because many people don't have the a different perspective. For example, from the your experience in Canada, your experience in also different schools, also. And I maybe we can start with that, no? With your idea of a great school. What's a great school? What would be the different characteristics or what a great school should be like, no? I don't know. Maybe you have some ideas of that.
Well, I do. And I have to tell you, I encourage every head of school, particularly young heads, to go through an exercise where once a year, probably at the same time, they take no more than 5 minutes and write one sentence that illustrates or describes how they view a great school, for lack of a better term. Call it whatever you want. And I was very encouraged earlier on in my career to do this, and I did this. And I come on the premise that there is a difference between great and good. It's very, very difficult to become great. And so most people, most organizations don't really have a desire to become great. They actually remain at good. And there's that old expression, good is the enemy of great. So they remain there because it's really, really difficult. It's really difficult to become great at anything, but particularly for a school. So over the year, I was a head of school for 31 years. I would say this definition evolved in the first 10 years, and for the last 20 years remained quite constant. And I would read it every year to the faculty and I explain it. So very, very simply, it's this. A great school strives to become a relational school, dedicated to the glory of education, while at the same time placing the highest possible emphasis on the development of a vibrant, strong, progressive, and exciting faculty culture. So for me, in the context of this conversation, I think the important things are a relational school that really focuses on faculty culture. If you're in the boys' school world, I don't have to tell you about being a relational school. The relationships are everything. But it's really hard. It's hard to understand what a relational school is, and it's really hard to become one. And the faculty culture is never about saying you have best teachers, but what do you have to do to create the environment where teachers, which will singly have the single greatest impact on the entire student experience, but what is the best way to create the best environment so teachers can be or achieve their absolute best? And so those are very, very complicated topics. I mean, you could do 20 doctoral theses on becoming a relational school. What does it mean about faculty culture? But that's it. And there's nothing in that definition that really talks about curriculum or pedagogy. It's not that those things are unimportant, but for me, it's really about becoming a relational school, and that focuses on faculty culture. So that's the essence of the definition. I mean, if we were going into detail forever and ever, I have a pretty good indication of the difference between good schools and great schools, and what does it take. And I'm not criticizing, for any stretch of the imagination, I'm not criticizing good schools, but I think there are very few, if any, that really focus on truly becoming great in the essence.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah, careful, Miguel.
No, and I like to use the idea of global when you say the global view of the boys and
Right.
girls. That yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, and look, let me be very clear, because part of that is what is a relational school, right? What does it mean? We all say terrific.
Yeah.
You know, there's that old expression with boys, and I think this is different than girls, keeping in with the equal and different. But there's an old expression with boys that if a boy does not have a relationship with his teacher, it's not that he won't learn, he will refuse to learn. And that's very crucial. I think girls thrive on the relationship, but they can survive without it. So when I talk about a relational school, I think just to be clear, so you're clear, and then we go on. I think very clearly a relational school is one that embraces love. So Miguel, we've talked a lot about within the Christian concept. If you're saying you are a Christian school or you have any contact and you don't embrace love, then I would argue if you don't embrace love and forgiveness, I would argue you're being hypocritical or you're not being true to
Yeah.
what you're all about. But it embraces love. It's a school that understands the value of and is committed to fostering deep connections. So embrace love. We really focus on developing connections, and with the goal that all members of that community, particularly the students, but not limited to, staff, parents, and everything else, will feel a true sense of belonging. So if I can really convey a system of love, right, where I focus on deep connections and I create a sense of belonging, I will argue that the actual learning and the pedagogical process will be the level you will achieve will surpass anything you could achieve without that. You're creating a group where just people feel close. They feel that they're known. They feel that they have a value to the organization. They're a part of it. They're an important part. It's not that it's always easy, but that is the real essence.
And do you think that that idea of relationship will affect also or create a community, or that will be the
Oh,
consequence?
I think absolutely. I mean, community is, I've always defined a community. A community is a place where people are very good about looking after one another,
Mhm.
that they really, really care deeply. I think with schools, we have so many different unique communities, but in the internal operation of a school, particularly with the faculty, staff, and the student body, I think there can be an intense community. As parents get involved in that, I think when parents see that there is a legitimate community between, in a boys' school context, the boys of a school and the faculty, I think the parents automatically gravitate to that community, and that they really, really want to feel that they're very, very part of it. They're going to take their cues from their own children, and when they get that, it's fine. But I think the relationship part adds to the development of a strong community. It's hard to have a really good community if we're not going to establish those relationships. That's for sure.
I lived that when I was in Selwyn House the day of the Barcelona attack. Do you remember?
Yeah,
We have a
yeah,
meeting with
sure do.
alumni there. You speak about the situation. They start to clap, and I start to cry. It was really a moment to feel the real community. That's
Yeah, and that was an important learning exercise for them too, right? It was a little bit cultural. It was over there. We had a visitor from Spain. There was a tragedy. Identify with it. I think that's really important. I will bet you that there are a number of boys that, because they were young alum, those boys were 19 to 22 years old. I will bet you that there were a bunch of them that really took an interest and actually tried to understand
Mhm.
more about Catalonia, about Spain, about what was going on, try to put a connection between what was happening in Canada and Quebec and all the nationalistic movements. Why so anyway. But again, it was giving that, and they also look what they also saw, Miguel, was clearly there was a relationship between you and me,
Yeah.
right? So there was a connection there which enables them to identify with it.
Mhm.
I think I'll go as far as say if you are not a relational school, I think you have real difficulty. And one thing the boys' schools have done, certainly in the last 15 years, if they have drilled into the concept of relationships, relationships, relationships. It's become the essence of it. And although I just said it's really important for girls, no doubt about it, but it is crucial for boys, and they have to done.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you, in all your 30 years working at different schools, and also when you co-founded Kingsway College School, what core principles have remained constant in your leadership and which have evolved along the different years?
Yeah, again, it comes back to that whole great school. So for me, it became relationships and a devotion on faculty. But I was a huge, massive believer in the study of leadership. So for me, that was the core principle. We could get into everything from integrity and honesty and hard work and ethic and resilience and all these amazing words, right? Which all have an equal amount of importance. But for me, the core principle of school leadership, which I learned and I think evolved to the point now I'm very strong, really came down to a couple of very key aspects. The first was that as a leader of a school, it was my responsibility to articulate a clear vision for the school, not that was written down in a brochure. And it wasn't coming from trustees. It was my interpretation of that and saying to all the people, this is what I believe. This is it. Not telling people how to get there. And I'm not articulating and I'm not worried, but I'm saying this is what I see we can be. This is right. We can be a school that embraces love and is a relationship and everybody and really going from there. Then what was crucial to me was a passion that there was, and a passion wasn't enthusiasm. It was simply convincing everyone that I really believed in this vision. Right. And we talk about that in education, the transfer, right? Developing passions. Why are too many times are we quick to discourage the passion that young boys and girls develop because it may be alternative and we try to force them into something where really that is going against their own passions. So creating a vision, convincing everyone I really believe that. The fourth thing was the whole element of heart, that where the love comes in. And heart to me was that you had a deep care for the organization and the people in it. You had to model it. You had to show it. That's what people really expected. And that was what I expected in return. And then the fourth principle of that, which are really my principles of leadership, but was authenticity. You had to figure out who you are and be yourself. So you could argue that was very Shakespearean to take an English playwright, but I mean, I know every culture in the world has had brilliant people talk about the value of understanding who you are. And those principles, that became a massive journey, right? Like I think we have to look way strategically for particularly for young boys who are growing up to figure out just exactly who they are. Miguel, I don't know if you remember, there was a survey that IBSC did globally, and the biggest complaint that boys had across cultures, particularly teenage boys, was the fact that they would say, no one knows who I am.
Yeah.
No one really understands who I am or takes the time. So when you think about education, and again, I am not downplaying the value of a strong curriculum, pedagogy, the art of teaching, the science of teaching, but I am saying that we have to give people a sense of really trying to figure out the journey of our understanding who they are, discovering it through that journey, and really being true to their authentic self. So those are the principles. I think, Philippe, as I progressed on my career, I kind of always had it in the back of my mind. And just what was happening as I was getting older, more experienced, everything was coming together. Like it wasn't proving wrong, it was proving right. That this is what we need. And I think if you study success and why people do amazing things, I think a lot of them came from that background where they actually were nurtured and really developed, and they had strong sense. And then they were inspired to go on to great things, whatever it was, whether they were athletes or artists or financial entrepreneurs or social entrepreneurs or just generally great corporate people, medicine, doctors, lawyers, whatever. All that greatness came from the fact that they seemed to have been inspired and really moved from there.
Yeah, I think that is something that we also talk at Equal and Different. That is the idea of boys and girls being at ease or happy with themselves. And then in that way, they are going to go to the war or to the different places very confident, no?
Well, I mean, that's crucial, right? So I think that true to yourself, there's that self-awareness. Then from self-awareness, you develop self-respect. You learn to respect yourself. Then you create the confidence, your own self-confidence. Then you can become a strong advocate. But think of the day and age. I mean, you had mentioned something about AI, but when you think of the complexities of technology, in particular social media, I mean, if you are not comfortable who you are, or have a strength about who you are and are sure, I mean, that the damage that can be done is incredible. And maybe it is more pressing for girls, seems to be, in that social media context, but boys suffer from it too. And invariably, it's that lack of confidence of who they are. They doubt themselves, right? And I think that's an ongoing process that is a responsibility of schools. Many of us try to do it well, but to me, it has to be a priority. Right? We know they're all smart. They're all very capable. They can do amazing things. Now we have to go beyond that and give them a true sense of purpose. And as you say, some great self-confidence. So when the bumps happen and all the knocks occur, they have that inner strength that they will be able to get through it. And it doesn't come from nowhere.
Yeah.
So thank you for this great answer. So now we are going to change a little bit the topic. We are going to talk about, you were talking about something that is, another key aspect that is the faculty and the faculty culture. And I think that maybe we can learn more about that. And I would like to ask you, so how can school leaders effectively build and sustain a strong faculty culture, no? A strong environment?
Oh, I see. So we're going to spend 3 months now on this. Well, it's funny. That was most of my work, and I created this faculty culture module at the Canadian Association. We have a leadership institute. As a matter of fact, right after I'm in Boston, I'm going out to Victoria to continue teaching with that. So the first step is understanding how important it is. You remember my definition of a great school had an inordinate amount of tension put onto faculty culture. And faculty culture is really where everybody is kind of basically on the same page, right? We're there because we believe in the institution and where we're going. And that still comes from that vision demonstrated by the head. I've always said that people have a difficulty of being managed sometimes, but people are desperate to be led. And they want to be inspired and they want to move there. So faculty culture, I think if we were in Finland, the probably big word they would use would be trust. It's trust in teachers and trust in that. It's creating a leadership that really understands that this is a value, and then recognizing the true importance of the teacher and giving them a sense. So there are all kinds of techniques, but let's understand, I think we know the quality of education cannot exceed the quality of the teacher. Therefore, there must be an inordinate amount of effort. And rather than go into all the great detail, is for me, it's just understanding that it's crucial. We want to think about what we can do. And I think there's a huge amount of leadership responsibility. Because to me, a strong faculty culture is the solution to pretty well every school problem. It'll drive curriculum. It'll drive pedagogy. It'll cause you to raise more money. Admissions will be augmented, right? You have a group of teachers who really want to be at that school, and they're given their autonomy, right? There is a direction, there is a leadership, but there's a trust in them to be able to build. And your job then your job becomes what? For a cliche, it becomes a model of servant leadership, right? That we're working very, very hard to hire very capable, talented people. And then we're basically saying, what can we do to help you do everything better? And I think when we understand that, that goes on. So if I'm leading a school and I'm talking about being a relational school that embraces love, for example, and I'm going to do that, I've got to make sure that I articulate that well enough that people can really, really understand it. And if I manage to create a faculty and a staff where they all believe that, where they all think about that, then I would say that is the beginning of a strong faculty culture, because it's a cultural movement, right? And a cultural movement isn't written down. It comes from a vision from leadership, and it has to be relentless, right? You just can't say, oh, well, we're going to really focus on faculty culture this year. I think it has to be an ongoing passion, because if you get it right, it will make all the difference in the world. And again, you know, on my website, actually, there's a thing about my little convoluted, archaic website, but there is a thing about creating faculty culture. I sort of had about 26 or 27 points that really aided in creating culture. A lot of them have to be put into context, but it was really, the basic essence was, we're going to support these teachers. We're going to show them that we're going to develop a relationship with them. They're going to feel a sense of connection, just like we described we want with our students. And when they feel a part of it, wow. Philippe and Miguel, I always said that it's great to have a school where everybody wants to go to, where every parent wants to send their child. That's fantastic. But maybe, or wouldn't it be better if you had a school where every teacher wanted to work at? That was the school that really strove. Because if you had that going for you, I think it would just be magical what's happened. Because then you don't have to, all you have to do is articulate that vision, right? Really convey it in a way. And that faculty, they'll control the speed. They'll make it happen. They'll say, whoa, you don't know how to do it, but we know how to do it. I appreciate that. We will go. And then you have, I think that's the basic element of organization success, probably through the last 2,000 years, right?
Yeah.
It's probably the success of Christianity, for goodness sakes, right? In terms of, no, but in articulating a vision and then having everyone interpret and make it go and all that stuff with all the complications. But when you are running an independent school, and you can create that vision and you can get people to buy in, fantastic. And it's okay if people don't buy in, because if someone really is opposed to the vision that you're establishing, then I think, you know what, it's perfectly fine to say, okay, I guess this is not the environment for you. There's going to be environment you can find.
Yeah, for me that's clear, and the important thing is to have a great mission, a very clear the mission of the school, and you say, we are offering you this. If you're happy with that, okay. It's not, and
Yeah.
the community, the faculty, they need to understand the mission and to follow it and to grow with
Right.
the mission. And I was
But
thinking with
But
the
in your case, sorry to interrupt, but in your case, particularly when you have a strong Christian or Catholic or that element to it, I think it's really important not to take for granted that people will understand what that means. Like, what does that mean in our day-to-day operation? How are we using it? And I think it has to be constant, because they're amazing guiding principles, but they're not going to mean anything unless people really understand and start thinking about it. It's very interesting, right? And it can be such a guiding force and a principle, but I don't think we can afford, again, to take for granted, well, we're here, everybody will understand that. It's not. And it has to come from people like you, Miguel. It has to come on a constant basis where you live it, right? Where you have to walk the walk, you have to model what you're trying to exercise, and move forward from there.
Yeah, I'm thinking on how can we give the tools to the teachers. Nowadays, there are more students with some psychological problems, and it's difficult to be one day and another day with them in the classroom with some attitudes, and they are because they can control his anything. I don't know. And what can we do? How can we help the teachers to be very health life for them? I don't know.
It's so again, a really important question. So for me, though, there are very macro steps. Number one, you've got to make sure everybody understands the value of the work, that it's really, really important to deal. It's not important just to deal with all the great students and the ones that don't cause problems, and those people are probably more likely to commit suicide anyway. But I mean, it's understanding that the care and working with these students is a magical thing. There's such a purpose. It's valuable. Of course it's difficult, but it's tough. So number one, go. And we all know that there are teachers who thrive on that, who want to bring in the person to his class who nobody else wants, will say, no, I'll take this student and try to do something. Then I think you have to make sure you drill the value of connection. Miguel, you've probably heard Ned Halliwell speak, Dr. Ned Halliwell, a child psychiatrist, who says that he's never met a boy in his life whose issues could not be solved through greater connection. Furthermore, he says the single greatest crisis facing young people today is the lack of meaningful connection in their lives. So if you take the time to connect, even though the student that has a very difficult time attitudinally, behaviorally, cognitively, has challenged, but still to actually take the time to connect, nothing will happen until that takes the place. And incidentally, we all need connection, but I think that becomes the root of it. So to take an interest and remember, develop that relationship, then through the issues. You're not going to solve everything in one day, obviously. These are ongoing things, right? I mean, Susan and I, in a lot of our work, we keep telling everyone, God gives you a bunch of gifts or a bunch of advantages or disadvantages, but maybe there's a cleverness to it. We have to understand our disadvantages and learn how to turn them into advantages. And that's really good teaching. But it's hard because the good schools say what? Well, we'll bring in so many specialists, remove these students, isolate them, do whatever. Whereas great schools say, no, we've got to work and understand the challenge. And I think what we find is the really top students benefit a great deal from their exposure to those difficult ones. Because when they see someone conquer and get over it and make progress, I mean, it's completely inspirational for them. And if we remove that, it's difficult. And I understand, yes, of course, there are going to be cases, everything is different. But the root of it is to make sure that people understand there's such value and beauty in dealing with challenging cases. It's unbelievable. It's not magic, but it's just, oh my God, it's so human. And if you take the time to legitimately connect in a real interesting way, simple stuff, Miguel. Is everybody saying hello to that student every morning?
Yeah.
Are you saying good morning? If everyone in the world says good morning to Philippe every day, pretty soon Philippe's going to start feeling pretty good about himself. There's where school can rally around it. Can everybody please do me a favor and just say good morning to him? Right? You don't have like that. Then it's taking that interest and understanding about the struggles and learning. And then you know the magic we see in schools. And of course, some of these students, many of those students go on to do phenomenal, incredible things in their life, right? And invariably, if they had someone, so that's and then you celebrate it. So when it does happen, right, what can I do to support? And as a head of a school, maybe sometimes it's your job to get right in the hole with a teacher and come in and sit down and roll up your sleeves and try to demonstrate what does it mean to draw a connection and where you can do that in magic. But then, of course, it's cultural. Then it becomes a cultural element of a school, right? Mm-hmm. If we're embracing love, we're not excluding anyone, presumably, and you're embracing that, and then there's progress. And when someone sees progress, they go, oh my goodness, and there'll be failures. And then we understand that, but there's an excitement and a joy and an energy about it that is truly amazing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Hal. We are running out of time, but we are having a really good time. So maybe we could do another interview, not maybe this year, but maybe later. I don't know. But we have a last question that I think it's a key question for equal and different, and in general for single gender education. That is, having worked in both single gender and co-educational schools, what do you believe are the strengths and challenges of each when it comes to boys learning
And girls.
and girls?
So, yeah.
Briefly, because we are almost on, yeah.
Okay. So, and my daughter went to a girls' school, her entire career and all that. So sometimes I think this is not against co-ed schools. There are many,
Yeah.
many amazing, great schools, and it's more of an issue, right? So if you're a boys' school, be a great boys' school. If you're a girls' school, be a great girls' school. If you're a co-ed school, be a great co-ed school. The thing about boys, though, boys need the relationship. They need friendship. Men are disadvantaged by their lack of friends, by their lack of connection. When you put boys together and girls are not present there, they are allowed to develop their intense friendships and relationships in a way a boy can. And that is transferable. And so they learn about the hard work it takes to be a friend, the value of friendship. And of course, that's not gender specific. When they go out and they become boyfriends or partners in love or husbands or anything like that, they've understood that it takes a lot of work to do that. So they really appreciate that. And I think you can't take a boy out of a boy. You know, boys need great female influence, they need strong male role models. But the core of it, to become a truly great man, you have to go through boyhood. And you can't miss boyhood. And boyhood is a messy, clumsy, awkward, crazy, emotional business. But we have to journey through that, right? And then we have to love our boys. And with girls, I think it's the same thing. I think the complication of girls and doing that and having them, they're going to be naturally creating more friends, and the complications are different, but enables so much to take place that is a tremendous advantage. And I actually truly believe that the progressive nature, having been a boys' school of boys' schools, is so impressive because of things like relationships and connection and the word love, that I actually think they're doing such a great job of preparing all types of men to really actually embrace manhood, not in a negative sense, but understand from a gender equality point of view, from fatherhood point of view, from actually commitment, contributing to society, really doing amazing things, and at the end of the day saying, hey, there's nothing wrong with being a man. I'm a proud man, for goodness sakes, and I understand this is what I've exposed to, and I'm a good man, and I really want to be a good man. And I think when the focus is on that, it just becomes magical. So it is not. And if you say to me, we live in a co-ed world, it's not a real environment. And I say, I don't think we do live in a co-ed world, to be really honest. I think so many often it's there. But I think if we want to prepare our boys and girls, if we want to prepare them for a co-ed world, we must prepare them to deal with themselves first and their friends. And then when they get that and they get that self-confidence and understanding and the value of friendship, they will go on and they will be amazing in the co-ed experience.
That's the point, the self-confidence and all the brotherhood that you can see in the boys' schools and the sisterhood in the girls' schools. That's the self-confidence is the point, in my opinion, to
Yeah.
be wherever you like, all over the world with no problems. Because if you are happy with yourself, you are happy everywhere for sure.
You know, tolerate yourself. I find boys, you know, they're not judgmental. I mean, they develop, they're tolerant. I mean, these people embrace diversity and equity without it having to be forced down them. They just do it naturally. They want to be inclusive. They want to help out. They want to learn. They want to be good. And I just think that happens.
Thank you very much, Hal. We are almost on time, but we had a great conversation and we learned a lot. And I hope that, and I believe that this will help many other people around the world to understand better single gender education.
Thank you for listening. Be different. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Spotify, and connect with us on Instagram and LinkedIn. Thanks for being here.